So thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon. I'm going to read out the tweet that you actually sent, saying that when he was fighting his own battle to stay alive, Xolani Gwala used the microphone to inspire, to advocate for early diagnosis of cancer and highlight how expensive and out of reach the treatment was for the poor. He was an amazing human being, and this speaks significantly to the fact that, even when he was facing difficulty, he was able to think outside of himself.
He was definitely, one of the things that Xolani did was to share his pain with the rest of South Africans. When he went off air and all of us were asking questions, he was the one that took the decision to say, I will share my journey with South Africans. And he did it because he always said to inspire other people that were also struggling with and fighting cancer. And I remember just one incident where somebody that we also knew was struggling with cancer, and Xolani said to me, give them my number and they can call me so that I can talk to them. And then when he returned briefly on air, one of his special broadcasts was dedicated to bringing attention to cancer, where he brought in the Minister of Health. He talked about how expensive it is, and he was open about his own privilege, that he finds himself lucky that he has access to the best oncologists, he has access to treatment when many poor South Africans actually don't, and wanted to start a conversation about how do we make it accessible for South Africans who struggle with cancer to have a fighting chance.
I mean, we always say this, Mahlatsi, that unfortunately it takes for someone to have left us before we actually acknowledge the significance and the role that they played in our lives. And I want us to speak about his career. I mean, spanning over 2 decades, this individual made an indelible mark when it comes to the broadcast industry.
With Xolani, I'd say it's a little bit different, and maybe because of my own journey. I mean, I started working as an intern at the SABC when Xolani moved from KZN and started working in the SABC offices in Johannesburg. And he's always inspired many of us who were, just starting out in the industry. He always had time, and I know that he inspired many other younger journalists that are coming up, many other broadcasters that are coming up. I mean, the likes of Tina Sizwe, Milani, Clement Manyatel. And he gave himself time to actually give advice and actually share his expertise. And for me, one of the things that always stood out around Xolani was, was just the professional that he always was, but also just the person who was always willing to help out. And I think the fact that the XG show on 702 remained XG show even when he was off there was testament to the person that he was, because the brand Xolani Gwala and the role that the Xolani Gwala played in the broadcasting industry, you couldn't fight it. Nobody can talk about Asikurume, the current affairs show on SABC, without associating it with Xolani Gwala. I think all of us remember how we had an appointment every Sunday because we knew of the power of the man. And I think what we need to do now is just continue that legacy. He has touched South Africans. We have seen how South Africans were moved because of his power behind the mic.
And of course, speaking about his integrity as a journalist, speaking about his integrity as a broadcaster, taking it seriously, that for the mere fact that I'm on the microphone, I'm going to use that microphone to achieve an objective, and there will be a positive objective to that. And I'm just saying that because of the different tweets and the commentary I was reading, as people were really sharing their condolences, but also were sharing some fond memories of him, and that highlighting of integrity and how he just came across as a neutral individual who was putting the subject before the person himself.
I call it a special pedigree for a broadcaster. Xolani Gwala could ask anybody very difficult questions and get answers without having to be rude, without having to impugn that person's dignity. He would keep on asking very difficult questions of those that we were holding accountable. For me, the one moment the 2 moments that stand out, when he actually interviewed President Cyril Ramaphosa. And I remember one of these questions, he said to the president, "Are you powerless? Why are you not acting against the then Minister Batabile Dlamini?" And that was Xolani Gwala for you. The other moment was literally when he forced the NUM and AMCU leaders to have a conversation with each other during that tense period at Marikana. And that was Xolani Gwala for you, understanding that being behind the mic is not just about him talking, but it was about South Africans having those very difficult conversations, but that those who are in authority have to be accountable and play their role. And using your talent to actually get South Africans to talk to each other and being able to not separate between a president and an ordinary person and speak to them equally with respect and dignity. I think that's the one thing all of us should take with us, to say we can still get to the answers without being rude, without impugning dignity, but most importantly, get the answers on behalf of South Africans.
I think that you've just summed it up so beautifully, and thank you so much for joining us and shedding some light in terms of the life, the man that was, and also perhaps the legacy for everybody that is in the broadcasting industry, but those also who are aspiring to become journalists or even become broadcasters. What does it mean to be an individual of integrity, and how do we learn from giants, from elephants, such as Xolani Gwala there?